History Says, the talk show that brings fascinating stories and hidden gems of history. Join us as we explore the events, people, and ideas that have shaped our world and continue to influence our lives today. From ancient civilizations to modern-day innovations, we'll uncover the facts and stories behind history books. So sit back, relax, and get ready to discover the incredible stories that history has to tell on History Says. Everyone, let's welcome our guest for tonight.
Good evening. Good evening.
Welcome to our talk show where we explore the fascinating history of the Philippines. Now, let's not start our session with a serious discussion and have a little fun. I have a game for our guests. It's called the Philippine History Trivia Challenge. That sounds like fun. Let's get started. Okay, here's the first question. Who was the first Filipino to circumnavigate the globe?
It's Magellan.
Sorry, that's incorrect.
Lapu-Lapu?
That's correct. 1 point for our political scientist.
Okay, next question. What is the name of the pre-colonial Filipino script?
Baybayin.
Correct. 1 point for the literature professor.
This is fun. We should do this more often.
I agree. Okay, final question. What was Jose Rizal's favorite dish?
I have no idea.
Okay, that was a trick question. We don't know what his favorite dish was, but we do know that he loved adobo, right? Like every other Filipino.
That was a good one.
Thank you. Now, let's proceed into a serious discussion in a while. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to History Says. Today, we're talking about the pre-colonial Philippines and the perspective of Jose Rizal on nationalism. We have 4 amazing guests with us today, and each of them with their own expertise on these topics. But before we dive in, let's get to know them a little bit better.
Let's start with our historian. Could you please tell us what sparked your interest in pre-colonial Philippine history?
Well, as a historian, I've always been fascinated with the histories of different cultures and civilizations around the world. And yes, pre-colonial Philippines is no exception. The more I learn about it, the more I understand and appreciate the complex societies and cultures that has been existed even before Spanish colonization.
That's interesting. And you, our political scientist, what made you interested in studying nationhood and its concept?
Well, as a political scientist, I am interested in how societies organize themselves and how people identify themselves as a part of larger whole. Nationhood is a crucial concept in modern political discourse, and understanding its history and development is important in contextualizing contemporary political debates.
I see. And you are a literature professor. What drew you to the works of Jose Rizal?
Jose Rizal is one of the most influential writers and thinkers in Philippine history. His work reflects the social, political, and cultural realities of his time and continue to inspire and challenge us to this day. His ideas on nationalism are particularly relevant as we continue to grapple with the challenges of our modern society.
And finally, our sociologist. What motivated you to study the relevance of pre-colonial Philippine history in modern times?
As a sociologist, I am interested in how the past informs the present and this shapes our sense of identity and belonging. The pre-colonial Philippine history is an important part of our cultural heritage that continues to influence the way we think about ourselves and our society.
Thank you for all sharing your perspectives. Let's move on to our questions. Our first question is for our historian. Did the pre-colonial Philippines exist even before Spain? And could you tell us more about the societies and culture that existed during that time?
Yes, there were already existing cultures and societies even before Spanish colonization. Those societies were highly diverse, ranging from a highly complex highly centralized political systems of Tagalog and Visayan regions to the egalitarian societies of the Igorots and Dumats. Each and every one of them has its own contribution to the richness of our Philippine history today.
That's fascinating. Our next question is for our political scientists. Was our pre-colonial country a nation? And what are the criteria that define a nation?
Well, that's a tricky question. While pre-colonial societies had their own distinct cultural identities, the concept of nation-state did not exist yet. The criteria that define a nation include a shared history, culture, language, and territory which were not yet fully developed during that time.
I see. And for our literature professor, what was Jose Rizal's view on nationalism and how did he articulate in his work?
Rizal believed that the Philippine nationalism should be grounded in the country's own history and culture, and not just a reaction against Spanish colonialism. He expressed this idea in his novel, No Limit on Durand el Filibusterismo, where he depicted the social and political realities of his time and critiqued the injustices and abuses of the Spanish colonial system.
Thank you for that insightful explanation. Our final question is for our sociologist. What did Jose Rizal want to accomplish when he learned about our pre-colonial history?
Jose Rizal's interest in pre-colonial Philippine history was driven by his desire to create a sense of national identity and pride among Filipinos. By uncovering the richness and complexity of Philippine history before colonization, he hoped to inspire Filipinos to reclaim their cultural heritage and envision a better future for the country.
That's a great point. Before we wrap up, do any of our guests have any final thoughts to share?
Yes, I would like just to emphasize the importance of studying our pre-colonial history for us to better understand and to appreciate the diversity and the complexity of our Philippine culture.
Yes, and I would like to add that understanding the development of nationhood in the Philippines can also help us think critically about contemporary issues of national identity and politics.
I completely agree. Jose Rizal's ideas on nationalism and his work continue to inspire and challenge us to this day, and we should continue to engage with them critically and creatively.
And finally, I would like to emphasize the relevance of pre-colonial Philippine history in understanding and addressing the challenges facing our society today, including issues of identity, social justice, and cultural preservation.
Thank you all for your valuable insights and for joining us on this talk show. We hope our audience gained a deeper appreciation and understanding of pre-colonial Philippine history and the legacy of Jose Rizal.
Join us next time for another engaging discussion on important topics. Good night!